Everyone, my name is Nitya, and you are at my Flosstube channel, Daybreak Stitchery. This is a channel all about cross stitch and a tiny bit of crochet today, and it's right at the end of the month, July 31st, and so I'm here to just show you what I've been working on during the month. Thanks for being here with me. This has been one of those months. It's been so busy that when I try to think back to the beginning of the month, it just feels like that was ages ago, like it could have been a whole year ago. But it's been a good busy. I got to see a whole bunch of people. We had a block party earlier this month. That was really fun. My first block party, because we were out of town a couple of years ago and our block tried to plan one, or did plan one. And I had my nephews over for an afternoon, and that was fun. I just caught up with some teacher friends for coffee, went thrifting, and then we did a big trip, which was in Iowa. I got to see Sarah in Iowa because Steve, my partner, was participating in Ragbri, which is a bike ride across Iowa. So we just got back from that this weekend. So it's been a really good month, and there has been a lot of progress on things. So I'm just going to get right into it and I can show you. So I have some FFOs to show you. So the first one is a SAF, a start and a finish. And it's this cute little thing right here. And this is, I think it's called Winter Cup. And it's by Uncanny Kari. And it's from over the winter, I had joined Kari's Patreon to give it a go. And it was really fun, and I think I'll probably do that, kind of like I do with like our streaming subscription services. I hop on for a little bit and then hop off, when I'm not using it as much. So I think that's what I'll do. So this was one of the freebies from December, maybe November or December, and it's called Winter Cup. And this is just a thrift store frame that I've had sitting on. I have like these ledges along the wall in my basement where when we unpacked from moving in a couple of years ago, we just put like bits and bobs, odds and ends on it. And I've been eyeing it for a long time, this frame. I'm like, I gotta stitch something small to put in this frame. And then sure enough, when this Winter Cup turned out small and rectangular like this, I thought it'd be perfect. So this linen is... I don't think it's officially a cross stitch linen. So it's a thrift store linen. So I was at a thrift store earlier this month, and I found a whole yard of linen. And basically, I'll look at all the textiles. When I go thrifting, I'll look at all the possible textiles. I'll look at towels, bed sheets, curtains, bags, like whatever, anything that has fabric on it, I'll look at it. And if I can see the weave and it looks like you can stitch on it, I'll go ahead and grab it. So this was a whole yard of linen. And I got home and I was like, well, let me try stitching on it. So the interesting thing about this, though, is that this pattern, Winter Cup, is supposed to be square when it's done. It's charted to be square, and you can tell it turned out kind of elongated. So that has been the interesting experiment. So I have this whole yard of this linen. It's really nice linen, very easy to stitch on, but whatever I stitch on it, it's going to turn out slightly longer lengthwise. It's going to stretch it out rather than being true to its kind of boxy size. So I'll have to just kind of look out for what patterns might be good to stitch on something like that. Probably like anything with medallions, like Quakery kind of things I could probably put on there. So anyway, yeah, so Winter Cup, yeah, this is a Patreon pattern, and I don't know how Kari does it, but I know some people with their Patreon pages, like after some time, I think they might release their patterns, or I'm not sure if it will ever be released or what, or if you have to join the Patreon to get it. So that was good fun. It's just DMC 310 because I got a cone, as I told you last month, I got a cone of it, so I'm stitching a lot more with 310. 2 strands over 2. I have no idea what count it is. It could be like a 40 count or maybe even a little bit smaller because the stitches look tinier than when I stitch on 36 count. So that was good fun and a really quick, like it just took a couple of evenings to stitch that one. So that was good. I fully finished Gaia by Quaternion Creations. So you saw this, I finished it recently because this was the pattern from Quaternion Creations that was in that bundle, the Earth Day bundle from the Stitchers Collective. So I had stitched it on, this is Picture This Plus Jade. It's an 18 count. And this is 3808 DMC, which is a lovely teal. I have a little cone of that as well. And then this is just a thrift store frame. Again, pretty much... Well, these two. A lot of stuff that I frame is from thrift store, and then as you can see here, I just kind of roughly paint over it. I use like craft, you know, you can, here at the big box craft stores, you can get like these little tiny bottles of acrylic paint, like Folk Art is one of the brands, and they're usually like $3 for those. So I'll paint over thrift store frames to match whatever colors I want. So this one I went a little matchy-matchy, and I think it turned out pretty okay. I didn't iron the Ada, so you're seeing some wrinkles in there. Framing is so not fun for me. I hate that you have to do so much prep and get it just right. So I just went ahead and framed it. It's okay. Okay, I'm going to squeeze in a crochet finish really quick. That again, did I tell you? I think I did. It's Gaia. It's called Gaia by Quaternion Creations. And this too, I don't know if these patterns will become available like eventually. They were part of that the Earth Day bundle. And then I don't know what happens to them after, like, that was done at the end of April or maybe sometime in May. So I don't know if the designers like have a little bit of lapse of time before they release them again or what. Okay, I have a crochet finish. This is pretty exciting because I wear a lot of cowls over the winter. And so I made this cowl. Isn't it so cute? It's really squishy and soft. And it's yarn from a local dyer who I found a couple months ago. No, last month in June, when Steve and I went to the bike shop / yarn shop, Cog Cycles and Yarns in Chicago. I found out about some local dyers. So this is from Naima Bond is her name, and her brand is Sister Anansi Yarns. And so I tried a couple of hers. This lighter purple that I'm using in these ridges is called Magic. And then the color in between is called Purple Night. And this pattern is the Mystic Cowl. Hang on, I'm going to look it up. Let me check my notes. Mystic Cowl, and it's from the Rich Textures Crochet website. It's a free pattern. So I'll link it below. I'll mention them and everybody else and link it below. In the descriptions in case you want to find it. It looks complicated, but it is a super easy pattern. It's 100% half double crochets. So it's a basic stitch. You're just using a basic stitch, and the textures are created. There's kind of these like bumpy textures here and then these ridges here. They're just created by putting your half double crochet into different places. So where you position the half double crochet is what creates the texture. Otherwise it's just the same stitch over and over and over again. And this was my car stitching when we were driving to Sioux City, which is, I should have brought you, hang on a second, I have something to show you. Okay, so I got Steve one of these little stickers from a vendor during his ride, so I thought I'd show you. So this is I was driving as a support car, and Steve rode his bike the entire length of Iowa. So this is an event that happens every year. This was the 50th anniversary, and it's the Register's annual Great Bike Ride across Iowa. So it's 7 days of riding, and they do a segment every day. And they have these stopover towns where people stay. You can camp. We camped for 2 days. We stayed in hotels the rest because it was so unbearably hot. It was like in the 90s, and one day it got up to 100. It was really uncomfortably hot. So we did camp a couple days, and we were going to camp a third day as well. And I just couldn't do it. It's too much. And a lot for him too. I mean, his heavy... I don't remember which day it was, but one of the days they were riding, I think it was 89 miles, and then the next day, and that day it was like in the 90s, and then the next day it was going to go up to 100, and they had like a 70-mile day, so it was a lot on him, for sure. But anyway, so we had to drive, so like Illinois is right here, and Chicago is like over here. So about 2.5 hours to Davenport, and then we had to drive the other side of the state for the starting point. So we started in Sioux City. So I can't cross stitch while in the car. It takes too long. It takes me like 5 minutes just to position my needle. So I packed crochet. So that's why I did this cowl. It was my car stitching. And I think it's awesome. It turned out great. And this is kind of an experiment for me too, because this skein of magic, am I right? Yes. This skein of magic, the lighter color purple that makes these ridges, that's a DK weight yarn. So it's like a little bit thicker than what you would use for like a sock yarn. And then these, the brighter layers in between, are a fingering weight, a sock yarn, but it's doubled up. So what happens is I get all these, I have a bunch in stash. I have these really beautiful yarns. They're all different weights and they're all single skeins. So I'm like, what am I going to do? I have like one skein of DK weight of this color. I have one skein of fingering weight of this. So I was thinking all along, like I should try to find a way to like experiment with doubling up on those sock yarns to see if I can combine them with some of my heavier weight yarns. And it worked perfectly. So this fingering weight is doubled up. And the way I did that is I had, like, you know, when you buy specially dyed yarn, it comes in kind of a twisted skein. So I unwound, I have a lamp, my stitchy lamp, that I put the whole loop of yarn around, and that's how I unwind it to ball it up. And I just made it, the fingering weight yarn, I made it into 2 balls. I kind of estimated when I reached about halfway and then rolled a second one. So that way I could take a strand from each of those and use 2 strands at the same time to crochet this one. And then the DK weight, I was just using the 1 strand. So this is awesome. It opens up a lot more possibilities because now I can actually do something with those random kind of single skeins of sock weight yarn that otherwise I didn't know what I was going to do with. So that is very exciting. Okay, so I have 2 more finishes to show you. Well, you've seen them finished before, but I've FFO'd them. So these 2, I'm submitting. I signed up to submit 2 pieces to the Illinois State Fair. And that's something, so for my international friends, you probably already know, because I think a lot of cross stitchers talk about this, and probably knitters and crocheters too. Maybe every state in the U.S., I'm not sure, but a lot of states in the U.S. have like a 2-week festival, usually in the summer or fall, and it's called the State Fair, and it's usually in the state's capital, and there are these kind of dedicated spaces where people can come show their livestock. There's like a dedicated hobbies and arts building where people kind of show their work. There are all sorts of different things. It's different things to see, different acts. There's usually music, a carnival. There's food, kind of like street festival food. And in Illinois, it runs for 2 weeks in August. And before the pandemic, I would there were a few years where I was submitting stuff. I actually brought up some of my ribbons and stuff to show you. I mostly was submitting crochet at that time and just a little bit of cross stitch. Because I was only doing, at that time, we're going back like 6 or 7 years now, I was only doing 1 cross stitch project at a time. Like I'd work for months, I'd start in January and just try to stitch something to be ready for June so I could submit it to the fair. So I wasn't stitching all that much. I was crocheting a lot more. So I have ribbons. Most of these are crochet ribbons, all second places, never a first. But I think well, for lots of reasons. But it's just cool they have some different ribbons for my artwork. And then my first year ever, I got an honorable mention on probably a crochet piece. So how it works in Illinois is you have until July 15th to sign up. So you have to send in, there's a form you download from their website, the Illinois State Fair website, and they have something called a premium book, which goes through all of the different like hobbies, competitions. And it could be there's a wide range, and it's so interesting if you actually go to the fair and look at it. It's really interesting because you've got people who are like submitting their garden vegetables and fruit to enter into competition, like most, best grower, or I don't know, biggest, or I don't know what the sizes, what the competitions are for that. There's a lot of hobbies collections, so like woodworking, painting. There's a collections category for like the best collections. So if you like collect stuff, you assemble it or organize it and then you send that in. There's a competition for that. A lot of textiles like crochet, knitting, so tons of sewing. There's a cooking and baking competition. So it's just interesting. You walk into, there's a hobbies building and the Illinois State Fairgrounds, and it's kind of like a little pop-up museum because you've got these like gorgeous garden things to look at. Everybody's like baking and cooking, and then you've got like collections over there, antiques over there, and all the textile work done. So the first time I ever went to the state fair, I saw that there was cross stitch and crochet. I was like, and I told Steve, oh, I want to do this next year. The tricky part for me though is that our state capital is quite a ways away. It's about like 3.5 hours away in Springfield. So for me to submit my items, I have to mail them in, and then I have to include I have to include postage stamps to cover the postage to mail the stuff back. So I haven't done it. In a few years, I haven't done it. And I think that, during the pandemic, the fair probably didn't happen. And then I don't know if it happened in 2021. Anyway, I'm submitting now because I actually have been finishing some stuff this year. So first one is this one from Ink Circles, which you've seen before. This is Half the Fun by Ink Circles, and it's on a 40 count feldspar by Picture This Plus. And my camera might not show. There's some light modeling in there. Maybe you can see it like on the bottom of the fabric a little bit. It's hard to see. But anyway, this has all the different forms of transportation, kind of a mandala with that. And this is just I don't know. I had this in my picture frames bin. It's probably from Kohl's. I don't think this is a thrift store one. I think I got this at a department store. It looks nice. It doesn't look as... My thrift store frames usually have some like scratches or imperfections on them, and this doesn't have that, so it's probably store-bought. So I'm going to send that one. And then the other one that I framed up is... what was this called? Birds from Bernard's Books. And this was by Modern Folk Embroidery. And I've shown you this finished before, but I decided to frame it up, and I'm going to submit this one as well. So we will see what happens. Maybe nothing, but maybe it'll just be interesting. If anything, it'll be put on display with all the other hobbies stuff, and it'll just be something interesting for people to look at. So this is on 40 count truffle by Picture This Plus. You can definitely see the modeling in that one. And then this is DMC 221, this color here. Again, it's a frame that I had, and I think it's from a department store frame, I think, because it looks nicer than some thrift store ones. So those are all my finishes. So do I have any other finishes to show? No, not really. So let me just gather up my whips and we can talk about that. I'll be right back. Okay, so I actually have two more little things to show you, and I'm going to have to put pictures up to talk about this first one. I wanted to show you that I've been putting up, finally putting up some of my framed cross stitch. I've been waiting because I wanted to, on our walls, I put up usually photographs that Steve has taken from both his travels and my travels and our travels, and then kind of mix them up with some of my stitching. So, this is what one of the walls currently looks like. It's a mix of, my stitching is all in frames by the Rusty Roof, and then Steve's photos are all in frames that are thrift store that I've painted. So on one side, that first picture is of an Art Nouveau building that we saw when we were in probably Riga. I think we were in Latvia, Latvia. We traveled, before the pandemic, Steve and I traveled a lot. Before we met, each of us traveled a lot. And then when we got together, that was kind of one of the tests of our relationship to see if we could enjoy traveling together. And we really did. We picked our first place that we traveled together. We were at way back when there was still like a Borders bookstore open. Steve kind of closed his eyes and I was like, pick something, close your eyes and pick something. And he picked in the travel section, the travel books, and his hand landed on Bolivia. So we went to Bolivia together and it was awesome. It was a fantastic trip. And So we enjoy traveling together. We haven't gone anywhere since the pandemic, but we hope to get traveling again sometime soon. So anyway, that's his picture, one of his artworks or photographs of a doorway from Latvia. To the right of that, you're going to see Let's Tatreez by Jordan Nassar. That's the one on the top. And then Isabella's Heart from Modern Folk Embroidery. And then the next one's over. There's a picture from when we were in Venice. And then below that, there's a photograph of... Steve took that one. I need to find out who the artist is. It's like a metallic mural from here, from Chicago. It's of State Street. And then over on the other side... what is everything? There's Bee Sampler by Lila's Studio. That's the one that's on top. And then the one in the teal frame, it's an Ink Circles Aventail by Ink Circles. It's like a teeny weeny pattern. And then off to the side is the Amanda Gorman piece that I've shown you in my previous videos that I've stitched. So that's what's up so far. So that's been pretty exciting, and I wanted to show you that because it's been taking me forever. I needed to blow up those photographs. I needed Steve to pick photos first that he wanted on the wall, and that took him a couple months to get to that. And then he sent me the link way back in like April to the shared folder, and then it's been up to me to actually order the photos. So I got that part done. So I've been working on framing. And then the other super cute thing I wanted to show you is that so I taught this month one of my nephews to cross stitch, and it's so super cute. They came over, my nephew, I have twin nephews, they're 10, and they came over, hang out sometimes. My one nephew, we love them both to pieces. They're just so cute. They're still very cuddly. They're not like standoffish yet, which we know is like right around the corner, but right now we're just enjoying how sweet and loving they are. Cuddly and, lots of hugs, and they love spending time together. And one of them is like just goes gaga over Steve. So like he runs, gets Uncle Steve, and then they play. Steve has this it's not an original, it's like a flashback Atari system. So they go down there and play real old school video games, and he loves that. And then my other nephew enjoys a lot of textile work and crafting, making stuff. So I had set aside, I had shown you maybe May or June that I restarted Silhouwitches. This is by Teresa Kogut. And I had it originally on 14 count Aida, a beautiful orange variegated 14 count Aida that was from a grab bag from Color and Cotton. And I don't really stitch on 14 count, and it was just too big and too cumbersome. And I thought, ooh, maybe my nephew would want this. So, 14 count is so much easier to see for small hands. So I left it aside, and I just told him, I do have some fabric for you for when you come by sometime if you want me to show you how to cross stitch. And he sat down, and in 2 minutes he got the hang of it. I drew out, this is our little worksheet from that day. I drew kind of a diagram. I showed him a stitch, and then I drew a little diagram to help keep a visual there while he was working on it. And then he just went to town on it. So he did some practice stitches on that orange piece of Aida. This is my current Silhouwitches, by the way. I haven't done anything more on it. You've seen it, I think. It's the same that it's looked like since the last time I showed you. Anyway, so he really enjoyed it. And then I showed him. I was like, well, when I cross stitch, sometimes I make up patterns, but mostly I follow other people's charts. And so I showed him some charts. And his eyes just got so wide, and he's like, oh, I know exactly what I want to do. And he was already planning out. It's not going to look like very much, but can you kind of see a 4 right here, a 3 and a 4? He's like, I want to stitch Nolan Ryan. The two of them are big baseball fans. I want to stitch a Nolan Ryan number 34 and then put he has this throwback jersey, I guess, Nolan Ryan. I don't know too much about baseball. And it's got these beautiful retro colors like oranges and reds and yellows on it. He's like, I want to make a pattern like that. And then in dark blue, stitch his name and his number. So he started charting out his own numbers, and it's just so cute. And he wanted to put stars on it and everything. So I said, okay, well, let's see if somebody already has a pattern charted out for stars and we can just buy one. And so I did. I don't remember who it is, but I'll put whoever it was in the comments. I did find a digital pattern. So we got that going, and then he started working on, it was like a big star that had to be filled in. So he started working on that, and He was using DMC 939, and I had him go through one of my DMC boxes and pick out like his red and his yellow and his orange that he wanted to use. So he was just so excited about that. And we just had the best time. And I had put on like a lot of times if I just want quiet at home, I'll put on like a YouTube video of like ocean sounds or like kind of lo-fi music or whatever, just something calming. I do that sometimes when my students are working at school too. I'll just put like some very calming sounds. And so I put on some ocean sounds, and like 10 minutes into it, my nephew was like, this is really awesome. It's like, this is so calm. I just love stitching and having these calm moments. And inside I was just bursting. I was like, yes, so stitch. Like this felt like a little stitchy retreat, right, with my nephew. So clearly, I'm super excited about that. My family is very creative. I have a lot of creative people. Like my mom paints and sews. My sister does all. So like the two of them are really known for being the creative people in my family. But they don't ever want to craft together, which is something I would love to do. I bring it up all the time, and they're like, no, we don't really feel like it. So like to have this little budding possible person to craft with is just so... I need to calm down, not get too excited about it, but also I'm very excited about it. Okay, I got distracted. I went to go grab my whips, and instead I grabbed all this other stuff. So let me actually grab my whips, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so I do have a few whips and a couple of new starts too. So let me show you what I got going on. So I am just dying to start that. There's a modern folk embroidery piece it's the Nassar sampler. It's the Lord of the Rings piece, so it has like a phrase in Elvish, one of Galadriel's phrases in Elvish. I am just dying to start that. I have the fabric picked out. It's a hemp fabric, like a beautiful tealy green hemp fabric by Jackson Fiber Arts. I don't have it here. I won't grab it right now. And then for some reason, I was looking through my DMC, and I have like oodles of DMC 648, which is kind of a silvery gray. And I thought, this is going to be perfect. And I already have a whole bunch of it. So the only thing is, this year I'm doing Cute Up Sale, where I'm trying to finish some whips before I start new things that I have on the horizon. So I told myself I have to finish 2 current modern folk embroidery works in progress before I can start that one. So I grabbed both of those and put some work on them this month. Okay, so this is the first one. So this is called Thistle Birds, and it's a modern folk embroidery piece that might be available on his website right now, but I found it originally in a Stitchy Day magazine. So Stitchy Day is a Japanese magazine, and Jacob seems to be printing a lot of patterns in it. Like almost every issue has something of his in it. So this is from, double check it if you're interested in this one. I think it's volume 32. It's the issue that has the Anne of Green Gables pattern on the cover. So I think this is from that same one. And I'm pretty proud of myself because all I had done before this month was I had gotten this branch out right here. I had done a little bit of the center, but not much. I'd gotten this branch out, and then like this part of the border right here. So like this angle and this angle I had done. Everything else I filled in this month. And I stitched it from just looking at what I had already done. You can believe that, because I can't find that magazine. I know I have it. I'm always misplacing stitchy stuff, so I just couldn't find the pattern. So I thought, okay, well, it's a geometric pattern. Just work it backwards and forwards, and you can figure it out. So the whole border worked out just from looking at the one bit that I had stitched. And then same thing, the branches. And then, of course, I dug around and found my issue, so I was able to get some of the other stuff going. Like these medallions right here, I wouldn't have known. I was lost on what to do with all this triangular bit in the pattern. I needed the pattern to do that, so... It's looking pretty good. So this is on it's one of the discontinued Picture This Plus that I still have kicking around. That I got on clearance from 123 Stitch way back when. It could be Picture This Plus. It's not Mellow. I think it's Picture This Plus Mellow. And the purple is a Silks for You. I don't have the number here, but let me know if you want to know what it is. It's a beautiful variegated purple. It's got, can you see that it's got bits that are very, very bright jewel tone, and then it's got bits that are very, very dark and muted. So the teal highlights there are Color and Cotton limited edition teal. So this is a 36 count fabric, and I'm stitching 2/2 on this one. And it looks really good, doesn't it? I actually do want to finish this one. I think it's really pretty. And I have some thrift store frames that I think will fit it. So I can frame it right away too. So that again is called Thistle Birds. And you can check the website because I know after some time, I think like a year or maybe a certain number of months, I think Jacob will release like all those patterns that are on Stitch E-Day. He releases them on his website too. So by now, this is from like almost 2 years ago now. So it's probably available on his website. And then the second one, I remember I told you I have to work on 2 Modern Folk Embroidery finishes before I can start a new one. This is Katakana sampler. And it's on Picture This Plus. This is Dill. Picture This Plus Dill. You can tell that these are starts from when I first started Flosstube, because these fabrics I got way back when, like within my first couple of Flosstube videos. And so these have been whipped since way back then. So Katakana sampler, I think there are a couple of Japanese alphabet samplers. And so this is a writing system. So Japanese has 3 writing systems. So this is the one that's used for like foreign words. So I have a little bit of the characters coming in here, but I need to do a lot. I need to fill out this whole spot here. I'm almost done with this spot. I finished the top border and I'm almost done with the bottom border. I just, these little triangular things that need to come in here and then finish some of these diamonds here. And then the alphabet. So it's almost done. So this again is limited edition teal. Don't they look very different? Maybe it's just the lighting. They're both limited edition teal, but they're just looking different on each fabric. This is DMC 4000, which is beautiful variegated DMC. It's gray and brown. It's gorgeous. It's a really pretty color. And every time I stitch with it, I think, why don't I use this a whole lot more? It's so pretty. So I really want to try to finish these this year and get started on that Namari sampler. That'll be fun. Okay, I stitched with my friend Priya, who she lives in Baltimore. So she and I occasionally Zoom chat and stitch, and we're both working on Heart Sampler by Bad Vibes Only. And so I got we must have only stitched for like an hour. She was on her lunch break. So all I got done was I started this little like bit, this variegated bit right here. And I don't remember what color that is because I have in my project bag for this, I just tossed in a bunch of reds and pinks. So every time I start a new motif, I just pick up a new color and use it. So I'm not sure what I picked up for that one. Some of these are recognizable, like, well, maybe. This is some kind of Bing Cherry, I think, by Classic Colorworks, the dark one. This is Dried Chilies by Color and Cotton. This, let me see if I can get closer here. So that, I think that's Bing Cherry, Dried Chilies. This bright red here is DMC 115. It's a little bit variegated. One of these is a Silks for You, and I don't remember which one. This is Color and Cotton Flamingo here. So I just don't remember what I picked up this month to do this bit. So this is just, we're both kind of chipping away at it. This is Priya's first project on a linen as well. She's stitching I think she's stitching 2/2 on a 30 count linen. I'll have to ask her to show me hers next time so I can get a picture of that. Yeah, so this is just kind of a, no goals. There's no queued up style or anything with this. It's just whenever we stitch and chat together, we both work on that. It's on a hand-dyed by Rolanda fabric, which I'm not sure what it's called, but it's a 36 count linen, and I'm using 2 strands, regardless of what the floss is. Okay, and then I did put some work really early this month. I worked a little bit on Afshan sampler, which is Miriam's band sampler, and it's awesome. I love it. This is on a 32 count even weave. It's terracotta, I think. It's a Zweigart even weave. and I'm using DMC 820, which is just this shocking bright jewel-toned blue, and it's so pretty. So I made it across the borders. So I started with, I think I probably did this one here first, and then I started adding some of the other borders in too. So those are fun. It's really easy stitching, very relaxed stitching. I can't wait to finish this. I think this border right here might be my favorite one, the one with the leaves and flowers. That takes a little more attention to watch and stitch. But some of these, like this border right here and this one, once you got the one repeat, you could do it over and over again without looking back at the pattern. So they're fun. This is going to be fun. I got another skein of 820. I got to see, I'm going to see Miriam in a week, and I got to see Sarah when we were in Iowa. I was able to see Sarah, and I'll see if I can throw in a picture. I was able to see Sarah at her local needlework shop, which was so exciting because all her models were there. Like Marigold was there, Pansy was there, the new ornaments were there, the new Halloween piece was there. So it was just so fun. And then we got to visit for a little bit before that was when we were on our way. I can show you on here, I think. So that was when we were on our way to Sioux City. Oh gosh, I don't remember. Iowa Falls is like up here. I think it's like north of Ames, somewhere in this region. Sarah's LNS is called Crisscross Stitchery, and it's a really nice space. The patterns are hung up. Do I have a pattern I can show you? Yeah, so for example, Silhouwitches, like there's always the cover photo, right? So on the plastic, on the patterns, she's got like a little hook on them. So all the patterns are hung up like this in the shop. So it's very visual. You can see everything. You can get a glimpse at everything, which is kind of, it's just interesting. It's different. It's interesting to see how different local needlework shops, organize themselves. And then they had an open stitching area on the back. There was a group there stitching on stuff. So that was fun to see. So, and I get to see Sarah again in a week, which will be fun too. I'm excited about it. Okay, so those were my works in progress. So I do have a couple of new starts. So let me just make sure I have my stuff together for that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I do have some new starts. This one is just an experimental. I tried a couple of experimental stitches this month, and then one is a Sal that Miriam and I started this month. So this one's an experimental one. So back when I was thrifting at the beginning of the month, I found this dish towel, and this is another one of those textiles where it was just really easy to see the weave. So I thought, let me try to cross stitch on this and just see what happens. So I took a skein I have a classic Colorworks that's I think it's called Just Rust. And I just started stitching on it, stitching some motifs on it. So I'm not really sure how I feel about it yet. I don't know if it's something I'll finish. I think that this print on this textile might be too strong. Well, I don't know. I kind of like how it looks now. I feel if it was like a little more faded, maybe it would be good to stitch on. So I might save it. I've been wanting to try some embroidery, so maybe I'll embroider something over, but I think it'll be the same problem where the print is so strong it'll conflict with whatever I'm stitching on it. But it's really easy to stitch on. So these motifs are from a 2x2 stitch art pattern, which I'm not going to remember what it is, but I'll look it up and I'll put the link below or the information below. And so yeah, I was just trying to stitch. I was stitching 2/2. It's super even right now. I can very easily see the grid, and I love the look of kind of I love like a mixed media look, where it looks like different textiles and different materials have all been put together to create something, whether it's abstract or not. And so this kind of gives me yes, it's kind of overwhelming to look at. It's a lot of like imagery happening, but I also kind of like the look of it. It's unexpected, and you kind of stitch on whatever you've got, right? So it has that kind of feel to it. So maybe I will go ahead and add some more motifs and see how I feel about it. Maybe I'll finish out this. I don't remember what it looked like, but I think there are like 4 of these in different directions, all in a circle, and then there are some like leafy things that come in between. So that was fun to try. It was a fun experiment to try that one. And then I have another experiment, which this was not I'm trying not to have too many just random starts, but this was so compelling to try. So I have a cone of DMC 3808, which I got to work on that Courtney collection piece that I started last month. And so I have a whole cone of 3808 and I love it. And I don't know what it is about being on the cone. This is going to sound odd, but I think you'll get it. The lengths of thread that I take off of the DMC cones and then I separate the strands, they are the straightest strands that I've ever worked with. It feels like someone ironed them and made them so perfectly straight. They're like tangle free. They're so easy to use and they're really pleasingly straight. And I don't know how that's happening while they're rolled up on a cone, but it just is. It's very nice stitching. Anyway, so I had done last month, I told you I had participated in the Friday night fight night by Bestitch Me. And one of the fabrics I got was this beautiful teal called Atlantis. And I don't usually stitch on these like oceany colors. I know a lot of people put like Bella Filipinas on them, for example. I don't really do anything like that. So that cone of DMC 38 was sitting right next to this. I thought, oh, let me just play around with this. And so I looked in my stash for anything that was blue or had blues in it. And I thought, well, let me try to play around with that. And so I found this Prairie Girls sampling. It's by Marjorie Massey. And it has there's one pattern for this cute bunny and then one pattern for this little bird. And so I thought, let me give it a go and just see how this 3808 looks on this fabric. And it's pretty dreamy. So here's what it looks like. So we're going for a little bit of color on color, and I kind of like it. So all these motifs are the 3808. And then I decided to go for a contrasting color because that's kind of like if you look at the pattern, see how the bunny's highlighted in a little bit darker color? I kind of like that. So I was going for a similar idea, but I picked a different color altogether. It's DMC 154. Very, very ultra, what's it called? Ultra very dark grape or something like that. It ends up being kind of this beautiful burgundy, purpley burgundy color. And then I was intending on this to be a Saf this month, but then I didn't take it with me. How did it go? No, I did take it with me on the trip, the Iowa trip. The thing with the Iowa trip, so if any of you are cycling enthusiasts and you're thinking about doing RAGBRAI, the Ride Across Iowa, talk to us, talk to me and Steve, because now we've done it once as a sport driver and as a rider, so we have a lot of tips on what to do the next time. And one of them for the support drivers is that you actually have long stretches of time when you're not with the rider. So it's awesome for the riders because they basically block off entire state roads. And so they're just it's 20,000 cyclists just taking over the roads and they're riding from town to town. And so there's a designated cycle route where those streets are closed. So since the drivers can't drive on those streets or being used by the cyclists, they have alternate routes that are just open roads where we drive, and they pass through the cyclists each day when they're going from the departure town to the destination town. They have like 3 or 4 what they call pass-through towns. So these very charming little Main Street towns, they have small businesses and all these vendors come out. They sell stuff, and local like libraries, schools, churches, they all kind of sell like pies and all this fun stuff. So it ends up being a big fundraiser for all these local organizations too, because it's their chance to like sell a bunch of stuff. So anyway, the drivers are advised to not stop in the pass-through towns except for one each day that's designated as a meetup town. So every morning, Steve would get on the cycling route between like 6:30 and 7:30 in the morning. And he wouldn't arrive in the meetup town until about noon. Well, there are no shops open till about 10. And a lot of these small towns that had like quilting is big in Iowa, so there are a lot of quilt shops, yarn shops. A lot of them would actually be closed during the event. They'd say, well, since the roads are closed, we're going to be closed since our we can't, our customers can't get to us. But it's like, oh my gosh, but then you have an influx of like 20,000 people coming to your town. Like, why wouldn't you be open? But anyway, everybody's got their own choices to make on that. So basically, as the driver, there's like 5 hours to kill, 4 or 5 hours to kill between when you see your group again. So I would try a lot. I took a lot of stitching with me. This was one of the projects I took, but it was just so hot. And a lot of towns had like no coffee shops, nowhere to sit inside, no indoor spaces where you could just sit and wait it out for that long. So I'd take a lawn chair and just go watch the cyclist. There would be cyclists rolling in all day, right? Because there would be some cyclists who'd get on the road at like 5:30. So then they'd already, by like 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, they'd already be passing through the meetup town. So it's a lot of people watching. I'd set up my lawn chair and just kind of watch riders go by. Yeah, so I don't know. I didn't get as much stitching done as I wanted to. It was just really hot. I ended up, even if I had stitching in my hand, I would just kind of put it down. It's the kind of heat where you just can't do anything and you just feel so drained, like in a daze. So I got some stitching done. I'll show you on my next new start too. I actually got more progress on that one, but very little progress on this one. So hopefully I can try to finish this by, I'd like to finish it this year. It's really small. If you look here, see the bunnies in the center. So it's already like this is the halfway mark. So I just repeat these motifs on that side and I've got the length. This is the width of it right here. I already reached the bottom. So should be quick enough to do. I love Julie, Kansas City girl. She has this really great habit of like once she just recently did she recently do? She usually in the summer does a whip parade. I think she did. And she has this really great habit of writing out, like handwriting out a list of all of her whips. I really like that. I do that too. I usually do my list like in December at the end of the calendar year. And I like it because it's almost like a mindfulness activity for someone like me who starts way too many projects. It helps you remember like, oh, I really like that. Or, oh, I should just shorten that one. Or, oh, I don't have feelings about this anymore. I should take that one off the list. So it's a good way to just spend a little time while you're writing out the project name. You're spending a little time with it and thinking about it, how much you enjoy it or how much you want to get back to it. And it puts some of those projects back on your radar. So this month I didn't write out a whole whips list, but I did make a list in my like little cross stitch notebook, my book where I keep my notes for videos and things like that. I did keep a list of everything I've touched this year. So whips and new starts. So now as we finish the year, what I'd like to do is like resist any sales that come up and just try to like chip away at some of these. See if I can get more projects done. Of the 46 projects I've touched this year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 of them I finished. So 46 touched and 15 that I finished. So that's about a third, right? So I think I can keep going. There are definitely like these modern folk embroidery ones that I showed you today. This Marjorie Massey. There are some that I think are realistic. I can add a few more finishes. But what I'd like to not do is add more starts for the rest of the year. I want to work on these ones that I've touched this year. So that's the plan. Let's see how it works out. Okay, I have a really big new start. So Miriam and I started a sal for Sarah's pattern, Pansy Bloom, and we're calling it #LetUsShine Sal. And that line comes from a poem by Rosemary Watola Brahmer, who's an American poet from Colorado. And she wrote a poem about pansies, and it has a beautiful line in there that says "Let Us Shine," so we call it the "Let Us Shine Sal." So I started it, and this one, I think the model. Let me see if I can find it. The model is on Luminous Warmth by Fortnite Fabrics, and these are all DMC colors. And this is based on a photograph of a pansy from Sarah's garden. So it's got beautiful variegation. You can see all the petals, and it's got these really pretty purples. So I got mine going. Mine is on a piece of woodland by Picture This Plus. And this is the same fabric that I used for Marigold Bloom, which you've seen in some of my older videos. It's usually, when I make my videos in my basement, I have some pieces hung up around and it's usually hung up there. So it's on green. So here's what I got so far. Isn't that lovely? It's got these beautiful pinks and purples in it that are pretty hard to resist. The only thing I'm finding a little bit challenging, I think it's because of the fabric I've chosen, or maybe it's just the lights I'm looking at it in, or maybe I just need to finish it and get a better sense of it. There's this beautiful variegation. So this is all DMC white, and here are these petals. But see how there's this beautiful variegation? It's done by using a slightly darker tone. It's like a very light lavender tone DMC. I'm not seeing that yet on mine. Right now, when I look down at it, I can see it. So I think I just need to finish it out. And maybe I'll be able to see it better. Like right here, it looks a little washed out. So I will proceed. I'll go ahead with the plan. And then maybe when it's all done, it will show up a little better. We'll see about that. And then I'm stitching. So Miriam, as in true Miriam fashion, has already finished hers this month. And she stitched some lines of a poem also about pansies that was in Farsi. So she had lines in Farsi, poetic lines in Farsi on hers. So I'm taking a page from Miriam's book and I'm stitching a verse from that poem by Rosemary Watola Tramer. I will link her name and the poem below so you can read it. I read the poem out loud in my last video, but I'm taking the last verse in it that includes the lines, "Let us shine." I'm stitching that. And this is using a cursive calligraphy font by LiftedSpiritStudio on Etsy. I almost said Netflix. On Etsy. And this is one of the same fonts that I used when I stitched that Amanda Gorman quote. This was included in, I'm recycling one of those fonts. So part of it doesn't look like much now because I've only done bits and pieces of the quote, but half of 2 lines will fill out here and then 2 lines will fill out on this side. So I'm really excited about how this is turning out. I think these colors are so bold and beautiful. Very excited about that. My pansies in the garden have been a disaster. I thought to myself, let me try growing some pansies. And then by the time I have this stitched, I'll actually have some pansy flowers. Like none of them bloomed. I tried a whole nother batch and there are some seedlings coming up. So we'll see if they come. But they're so delicate. The ones that I started earlier this year, not a single one came up or survived or anything. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that. Okay. Plans. Well, I just need to just make sure I have all my plans sorted out. I'll be right back. Okay, so plans. I mean, the big part of the plans are to continue finishing things. It's been a really good year for finishing projects. So I want to keep that going. Get that list. That list that I wrote out in my notebook. I've been highlighting ones as I finish them. And I just noticed that I haven't highlighted Winter Cup that I finished. So I want to make sure to highlight that. And couple of one maybe project that I want to start next month and one that I'm definitely going to start in December. So you are probably like me. You love Sunshine Stitchers. I've been watching them since I started floss tubing in 2020 and since I started watching floss tubes in 2020. They bring us a lot of joy. They're wonderful people. And EJ had shown maybe in the last video or the one before that, a Rosewood, they stitch a lot of Rosewood Manor. So she had shown this 12 Quakers. And I love these like spot sampler kind of things, Quaker motifs or whatever it is. These like medallions I think are so pretty. And there are a lot of like creative possibilities with these, right? You can make them single color. You can change the colors for each little detail in the motif. You can make them coordinated colors, or you can choose colors that are, if you're gifting them to someone, you can choose their favorite color. So there's so many different ways to personalize it. So, EJ was showing this, and because it's 12 Quakers, to me that's like, ooh, that would be a great yearly stitch along, to do like a motif a month because it's 12. And then I was like, well, it's actually got way more than 12. First of all, it's got more than 12 medallions, but it also has the numbers you've got to stitch and the border. So it's like 12 and then some. So to me, that kind of sounds like a baker's dozen. So I was like, so I put in their comments, hey, this would make a really great sale. What do you think about that? Like an annual, like a year-long sale. And then EJ had messaged me and said, hey, you know, that sounds good. Are you in? I was like, yes, I'm in. And I said, you know, because it's got the extra bits, maybe the hashtag could be hashtag bake me a Quaker Sal, because it's got the ache and the ache. It's got kind of that, you know, sounds work out, and it does have more than 12 bits to stitch on it. And so she really liked that. So the hashtag now is bake me a Quaker Sal, and she divided it up. It's on I think EJ put it on her Instagram page, and Sheila did as well. But it's what she's done is divide this chart out into 12 sections, and then the 13th. How does it go? That's for 12 months of the year, but then it's starting in December of this year, so you can start it early. And then the 13th month is just for catch up. So do the extra bits or whatever you didn't get if you fell behind one month. So I think that'll be pretty cool. And I just realized I forgot something that I need to show. When I was in Iowa this week, I visited let me grab something. I'll be right back. I'll show you. I picked out my flosses for this, so I want to show you what I got. Okay, so for 1 dozen Quakers, I have been thinking about colors. EJ already picked out some colors. And so I was at the Quilter's Cupboard in Uncanny, Iowa. It's a little suburb. It's a suburb of either Des Moines or Ames. It's like between Ames and Des Moines. Let me show you on the map. So here's Ames and here's Des Moines. So it's like right in here. There's a suburb. This is only like, to get this distance is only like 30 minutes. It's real quick. So in between there. So the Quilter's Cupboard, they were really, really nice. Iowa has tons and tons. Quilting is huge in Iowa. So I was able to visit like 3 or 4 different places that are just quilt crazy, like all different. And it's just like visiting an LNS, where if you visit a local needlework shop, there's models hung up all around, right? So it almost has like a museum-like quality, and there's a lot of really beautiful stitching to observe. It's the same thing in a quilt shop. There are beautiful quilted pieces hung up all around. And the thing that's different is that their palettes are not embroidery flosses. Their palettes are other fabrics, like printed fabrics. So you would see like walls of all these different colors of fabric. Really cool. So the Quilter's Cupboard, it was Cindy and Reba. They were both super nice, really fun to chat with, very friendly. And they had the entire collection of Cosmo flosses. And I'd seen this on a couple of the quilting shop websites that they carry Cosmo 6-strand flosses. Quilters, you'll have to confirm this for me. I'm not a quilter, so I don't know. But my guess is that it's really popular for doing embroidery. So a lot of quilted pieces will have embroidery, like motifs embroidered on it, like a scene or something like that. And I think a lot of people are starting to use Cosmo floss to do that embroidery. So all these quilt shops have Cosmo flosses, not DMC. So I picked some up. So these are some different colors that I picked up. And there are a couple of these colors that simply do not exist in DMC. So in particular, these purples, I like this deep purple like this, that's more of kind of a bluish purple. I don't think that exists in DMC. And this, like, I can't recall any colors that this is the same thing, but kind of grayish. This is sort of the dark version of, you know, it's like DMC 317 or 318. It's that grayish color that has a tinge of purple in it. If you kept going darker, this is what that would be. So this was kind of cool to grab some colors that just don't look familiar. This is sort of, it reminds me a little bit of DMC like 500 and 501, but it's got a little bit more of a brightness to it. Their jewel tones are really nice. This I think probably exists in DMC, but I got it just to compare and be sure. It's kind of a cornflower blue. There are some cornflower blues in DMC. But anyway, so this like super deep green. Ooh, this green, I don't know if this green exists. It's kind of dark green. The colors aren't really showing true on my camera, but trust me when I say that these are just pretty amazing. So they're showing up a little bit brighter on screen than what they actually are. They're a little bit more muted. So anyway, I'm going to make up my palette for 1 dozen Quakers using these Cosmo flosses. And then I'll just use like whatever neutral fabric I have sitting around. I picked up some variegated too, like this. Isn't that pretty? And then I got another variegated. This one, it has these kind of fun party colors in it. Not sure what I'm going to do with those, but I have them now, so I'll figure something out. So anyway, that's my plan. I'm going to use some of these Cosmos and some kind of neutral fabric. And so that sal, it's the Bake Me a Quaker sal, doesn't start until December. So I have a little bit of time to get going on that. It'll be a whip/new start. That's really a 2024 one because it's starting a little bit later. And then the other one that's like a sort of a plan, but I have to talk to her about it first. So Laura, who's Lila D Stitches, I really love her channel. I think she's one cool gal, and she loves sci-fi just like I do. So she had done a sci-fi July. She stitched on a bunch of pieces that were science fiction related last month, and she also had some medical issues. So I think that took up some of her time last month, but in her last video, she talks about some of the science fiction that she stitched. So I was asking her if she thought about making it a sal, and I think she was just so like busy with her medical stuff. We didn't have a chance to chat about it, but I'm gonna message her and see if she'd want to start a sal for it for next July. And so I picked up from my public library this Star Trek cross stitch. And there's a pattern in here that I'd like to start. Let me see if I can, you've probably seen this already. It's actually a Lord Libidan pattern that's in this book, and it's a holodeck panel. If you watch Star Trek, you'll know what it is, but this book is really fun, actually. It has lots of patterns in it, and then like these cute little write-ups. I'll read you this one. So the text on the panel says, what happens on the holodeck stays on the holodeck. The holodeck is basically like on these ships, because people are out in space for so long, they need like entertainment and also training. So they have these virtual reality rooms where they can program it to look like anything. So this is the programming panel for that. So anyway, it says, everyone who watched Star Trek Next Generation wished they could have a chance to use the holodeck. The holographic projections of ski slopes, jazz clubs, and Sherlock Holmes mysteries grabbed our attention and helped us imagine what technology would be like in the future. If you had access to a holodeck, where would you go? This person says, I'd go aboard the Enterprise. So it's just got like a cute write-up that goes with it. There's a hilarious one for Wesley. For all of you Next Generation fans, the stitch is Shut Up, Wesley, and it's by John Lohman, who wrote this book, the writer of this book. And the write-up says, watching The Next Generation wouldn't have been nearly as entertaining without young Wesley Crusher around to yell insults at. Never in history has a teenage boy been responsible for saving a whole starship from destruction while simultaneously annoying crew members and audiences alike. He wore many amazing futuristic/80s sweaters throughout the years, but here he is shown wearing the classic red, yellow, and green stripes. I don't really have strong feelings about this character, Wesley Crusher. Plus, I think it was kind of cool, you know, we have in the US, we have the writer's strike going on right now, and the actor who played this character was on the front lines this week with the actress who played his mom, Dr. Crusher. So I know he stands up for workers' rights, which is a great thing. Okay, so I'm going to contact Laura and see what she's got planned for future Sci-Fi July and if she wants to do a hashtag or something. But that's, I guess that's more of a long-term plan, so that's not really a big plan. I'll just chip away at my whips, I think, would be my plan. Okay, I'm going to pause here and then we'll do some quick garden talk. If you enjoy hearing about the garden from a very amateur gardener, stay tuned. Otherwise, I'll catch up with you in another month and show you where I'm at with all this stitching. Be right back. Okay, So for garden chat, I'm going to throw some pictures up. July has been a really great month for blooms. A lot more things are starting to bloom in the garden. So I got my first calendula. So I picked up calendula seeds right at my market. I have just a little kind of tiny grocery store, a neighborhood grocery store, and the Chamber of Commerce had put together these packets of calendula seeds and just left them at the store for like any customers to pick up. I think that's something. That's a good tip for any budding gardeners. There are ways to get free seeds. You don't have to buy seeds. So I got those at the market, just my local grocery store. I know at our high school, we have a cultivation club. The school where I work, there's a cultivation club. And at different times, they've had seeds available. Like they put them in little envelopes and make them available for the public to encourage the planting of native plants. I had a former student who made it to like the highest level of the Girl Scouts. And her big they have to do like a huge culminating project for that, and her project was to start a native pollinator garden at our school. So she, at that time, she was giving away like big envelopes of native seed, like all different types of native seeds in one kind of pouch. So I got seeds from her. And then our local water reclamation district which basically handles like the sewers, they were giving out free milkweed seeds. Milkweed is a native plant here, very, very important for monarch butterflies. And they were giving away seeds. They encourage anything that has to do with like water waste or water runoff, right? Because planting native plants is really good for like keeping soil, and then soil takes in water. Avoids like erosion, keeps things from eroding. If you have native plants have deep roots, so they can hold soil, a lot more soil. So anyway, I got free seeds from them. So if you look around in our public library, oh my gosh, our public library has a free seed library. So for anyone who's struggling, can't afford their own, you can definitely go get seeds there. And I'm like, this year I have some red coneflowers that have been doing really well, so I'm going to be collecting more. I got some seeds from them last year, but I wasn't diligent enough about it. I'm going to get a whole bunch this year and definitely share some with the library for people who want to plant them. So there are resources that you don't have to feel like you have to buy all the time. And then just ask your neighbors too. They might have seeds as well. Okay, so calendula that I got for free. So calendula is an annual here in the Chicago area. I'm in zone 5. So that means it doesn't usually grow back from year to year. But one thing that happens with annuals is that if you just let them, like when the season's done, they produce seeds. And if you just let them be, those seeds will drop down into the earth. And then next year you'll have like new plants that you didn't plant. They just came by themselves. So that's what's happened to the calendula that I started from last year. A lot of it has self-seeded and come back up. And they're beautiful. They're like these very bright pops of yellow. They've been a joy to have in the garden and see them come up again. What else? The red coneflowers. These have been just a wonderful thing to have in the garden. All of my red coneflowers I got on a 75% off clearance from my garden center, like in September or October of last year, when it's basically this planting season is done. You can gather up all these local native perennials. And when I got them, they had stems and leaves, but no flowers, because basically their flowering season was almost done. So I just figured, you know what, that's okay. Get them, put them in the ground. They will overwinter, and then they'll come back, and they've been doing really well. They have a lot of blossoms on them, and they're very pretty. So those are the ones I'm going to collect. I collected a bunch of seeds from them last year, so I'm going to plant more of them and then collect more seeds this year too. They're really... Coneflowers are really good for critters over the winter, because I think critters eat those seeds, like the little seeds. They have little bits on them that critters can munch on over the winter. So I usually try to keep those up. The dried flowers and like the seed pods and stuff, I'll keep them up over the winter. Okay, then... I squealed out of excitement. So when we were gone in Iowa for 8 days basically, and then we came back this whole month, I'm actually calling this video stormy weather. We've had an incredible amount of rain this month, which has been fantastic for the garden. And so when we were gone in Iowa, it actually rained quite a bit here. There were some plants that doubled in size during that 1 week when we were gone. And one plant bloomed that I thought was dead. So we have this bee balm, this bright pink bee balm. It's so pretty. I actually have big time bee balm envy because there's another house in the neighborhood that has only bee balm planted, like in a big part of their front yard. And it's just so beautiful. It's like this blanket of bright pink flowers like this. So my bee balm is about 2 years old. And it usually does pretty well. Last summer, it was doing great. And then we had a really heavy storm that basically flattened all my plants. Like all the tall branches were flattened. That's about the time when a little bit, like a few feet away from this bee balm is where I have my milkweed, which is a plant that monarch caterpillars feed on. I had 3 caterpillars last year, and that storm, like they all disappeared after that one. All those branches got flattened. But anyway, so it struggled a little bit last year after a lot of those branches got broken. This year, it was being eaten up by slugs. I do not enjoy insects in the garden. I know they're an essential part of the biodiversity, so I don't do anything. I don't use any chemicals or anything like that. They all live, but I'm not crazy about having them there. And the slugs drive me crazy. They're eating up they were eating up, I have a huge hosta, and they were eating up like entire leaves of that one. So I had to take things into my own hands. I use some of this diatomaceous earth, which double check my facts on this one, but I believe it's like crushed up seashells. It's crushed up, it's like a very dusty, abrasive material, natural material. It's all natural material. And if you sprinkle some of that at the bottom of your plants that are getting eaten by slugs, the slugs don't like to climb through that kind of grit. So that keeps slugs from chewing up that plant. So I treated this bee balm. It didn't even get up higher than like 6 inches. It was so tiny. It was being eaten alive. And so right before the trip, I was like, I've had it. I'm going to try this one last time to try to revive this thing. So I put some diatomaceous earth around it. And then when I came back from the trip, it had this blossom on it. So it was so exciting to see. And I just love bee balm. I think it's so pretty. And there are different varieties. There's I had one that I had been trying to grow in the front yard, and I think it just wasn't getting enough sun. It's like this beautiful kind of purpley pink. It was called a cotton candy variety, I think. But my favorites are these bright pink ones. So I'm hoping that I can, I don't know how seed collection works on the bee balm, but I'd like to try some of that too. And then, of course, the great joy in the garden this month, has been the sunflowers. So I planted a whole bunch more sunflowers this year than last year, knowing that the squirrels would get at them. And the squirrels did. Within a day, I'll put in some pictures of the very first bloom that we had earlier this month. If you follow me on Instagram, you've already seen these. So beautiful. So like a wonder of nature that this like beautifully perfect geometric thing can happen. And it's the red sun variety, and they've all been a little bit different. Some have been more yellow, some have been more deep, like a brownish red, some have been more pinky red, and they've all been wonderful. And now what's happening, the squirrels got to them on day 2. Like we had a bloom, and then on day 2, they were already after some of the blooms. And they've been munching up a pretty good number of them, but we've been able to get some blooms out of the rest. So I think it was the right idea to one of the tips I read last year when the squirrels were after our sunflowers was they said to plant a lot of them, just plant a bunch. The squirrels they always come back to chew the same one. So if they're still working on one, then it'll let your other ones grow. So that's kind of what I went with, and it worked for this year. And I have a bunch more that I started at the beginning of the month. We'll see if I can get them to bloom by like fall time. That'd be good. And then one last thing I'll show you, this is very impromptu, but I've been looking for one for ages, and I finally found one at a thrift store this month. I have been searching for candle holders, like tall candle holders that have a little bit of a dip in the top of them. And the reason for that is because I thought they would make great bee baths. So a bee bath is basically like a very shallow dish of water, a very, very shallow receptacle of water where pollinators, when they get too hot, can basically go get water, like cool off and go get water. So if you've ever seen, like I've had this happen in my yard, very cute bumblebee that's just lying on our sidewalk, sometimes they just get overexhausted. They get too hot and they just need a little water and they can get revived a bit. So I use these candle holders and I look for them at the thrift store. That's why in this picture, if I put a picture up, you're probably seeing like the thrift store price tag is still on it. Which I didn't remove. I was just so excited to get it in the garden. So I want to put them in different spots, kind of nestle them amongst different plants and just fill them with water now and then to make sure that our little flying friends have a place where they can freshen up a little bit. So that was exciting. I haven't quite found exactly what I was looking for until this week. I was at a thrift store in Iowa and I found this one for $5. So that was a great find. I've been looking for something exactly like this. So, okay, so that's all the garden chat. That's all the stitchy chat. Thanks for being here this month. I can't wait to show you what I'll get up to next month. Hope you all are having some good stitchy time no matter where you are. And I'll chat with you soon. Bye. Have a good rest of the day. Bye.